What's up YouTube? My name's Quickie, welcome back to the channel. It's Saturday morning. Oh, only just though, it's gone 11 o'clock. I had a lay-in, I still feel like poo because of this COVID thing. And I've been struggling all bloody week, it has to be said. But it's Saturday, so I'm in here till 4:30 or something. So we've got a few hours that we can muck about with. 5 hours. And I just want to see what I can do on this. So, couple of things for you. I did send off Mr. MSVA an email. I haven't had a response back yet. But I was thinking about it from the conversation that I had with the fella. If I put the bike in for a test and it fails, then you get a complete list of everything that you need to get done, right? And I'm thinking, well, why don't I just do that then? Because it takes out an awful lot of faff and fuss and everything, and it should shorten things up a little bit as far as the build goes. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to build the shiznick out of this. I'm going to get stuff just thrown on it. You know, things like the under tray welding and all that sort of stuff, I'll be able to explain it on the day to the fella in person rather than try and explain it through an email and everything else. But I'm expecting it to fail on something during that first check. Now, if it's a case of all that underside of the seat unit has to be welded up, it's going to be well, not impossible, nothing's impossible, but it's going to be bloody awkward doing it with everything on the bike and working upside down. And once you've welded it all, then you've got to dress it all up and blah, 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 blah. So what I think we're probably going to end up doing is putting it in for a test, letting it fail, and it can tell me what it's going to fail on. And then that's a work to list for the final thing. And I can have the engine out, get the engine rebuilt, flip the frame upside down and do all my proper welding and dressing up and everything else. Then I'll just present it again once it's all done and dusted and everything on his list has been ticked off. I think that is going to be the way to go. So, fabrication. Oh, it rings. Yeah, I want to get on with the seat hump. I've been Googling loads of stuff on this, and I don't think I'm going to do it out of one piece. If I'm honest, I don't think that's going to work at all. So, reason being is that I've still got curves and everything else to put down here, but there's straight bits that I need to put into it as well. I've been sending a few metal shapers an email, mostly in the States and whatnot, just because they seem a little bit more sort of prolific out there, but they were sort of saying, well, 3 of them have responded and 3 of them said do it out of 3 pieces. So I think that's what I'm probably going to end up doing. I need to try and scare up a piece of, I don't know, I've got that, oh actually I've got that stainless bit of stuff that I use for the spring hooks. Maybe I use that. Either that or TIG wire or something, I don't really know. But I need to make up a buck that I can stick onto the frame that I can follow. Which you think, oh, okay, fine. But that way I can shape this as much as possible, get it to fit front and back, then I can cut it and then I can start doing the side bits and pieces as well. I wish I'd have scored that centre line on this, but then again with all the wheeling it would have shifted a bit anyway, but we're going to see what we can do. So this is definitely getting chopped up. If I can't do it in steel, I'm going to be doing it in fiberglass, but either way I need to get that frame sorted. So that's going to be first thing, and then I'll be taking an angle grinder to this, cutting it up and going from there. I spent 80s on that as well. Right, TIG wire. TIG wire, this is it's quite flexible, as you can see. 2.4mm mild steel, but I'm thinking we could make a frame a bit like that. Something that I can follow front to rear. As far as eyeballing it and stuff goes, it is going to be a little bit of poking about, but I reckon we could come up with something like that. So at least I've got a guide across the front. I could maybe even tack it to the frame or something, I don't really know. But I'm going to play about with this and see what I can do. right, MIG wire ain't gonna work. Well, you don't get me wrong, it is dead easy to shape and everything else. I've just bent this around a template that I made. So this is gonna be where your butt lives, basically. That's gonna go like that. However, what I wanna be able to do is to chomp the top of this out and then shape it to fit the frame at the back and this at the front. And the way you do it, according to Pro Shaper, is you clamp it with these. These is really quite strong. Clamp that on there, it's just going to make a flat bit. So I'm not doing that. Instead, I found a bit of this, look. It's only mild steel, but what it does mean is that I should be able to heat this up. I'm going to go all Ghetto blacksmith. I've been itching to do that. I think what I'm going to do is shove this in the vise, heat it up and start, you know, slowly bending it and get it to follow the outline of my template. So I've got something solid that I can clamp those to. If need be, I could even tack this onto the frame, because I can soon break it off and dress it all up again. That'll be fine. But it means I've got a solid thing that I've got as reference that ain't going to move, that I can clamp stuff to, and we stand a chance of getting it done. So that's what I'm going to do, I reckon. Ghetto blacksmithing. Who was it that coined that phrase? Right, there's going to be loads of people saying, oh, you're doing it wrong. Have it up vertically, you can lean on it a bit better than that. Where's your spanners? Well, I'm doing it this way, and I'll tell you the reasons why. I'm not doing it vertically because you heat it up with a blowtorch and then you start pulling on it and you're going to be at an angle to the vise, so it's going to bend that way. But I'm moving about with the blowtorch all the time, so if I'm not in exactly the same place and pulling it in exactly the same way, it's not going to go flat. That's why I've got the roller. Doing it horizontally, it just means that top of the roller is set at the same height as the stock is in the vise. So as long as when I'm bending it, I'm in contact with that roller, it's going to stay flat. And it is staying flat. It's not doing this. I mean, you know, it probably is a little bit, and we're not going to know until I'm done and we put it on a flat bench and see quite how well I did, sort of thing. But, you know, it's sort of working. That's my template. I did half of it, and then it's all mirrored around the centre line, as you can see down here. So I'm going to do half of it, and then I'm going to flip it round and do the other half. It's 275mm from end to centre point. So once I get to the centre point on my template, I can mark it, measure off 275, and that's where it goes in the vise. And I've got a couple of little marks on here, so I know I'm getting it back in the same place. So I'm trying to be systematic with it. I'm also not using spanners. I don't want nicks in it. If I'm heating it up and then just pulling this end to bend it, then I'll get a nice smooth bend. And that's what I want, because this is going to be smooth. It's got to sit on a smooth thing. I don't want notches in it. I want as close as fit as I can get. So it's all going all right at the minute. I've also reused my bit of TIG rod. Again, I'm only using half of it, and I've got a centre point marked on it according to my template. So this, I could just sit on top of it and see, okay, are we running down the centre line or not? I mean, we're pretty close. We're not there yet, but we are pretty bloody close. And obviously he sort of marries up to that, so I know we're sort of, you know, we're where we need to be. But you can hold your template up, and because it's paper, as soon as it touches hot metal, it just starts smoking. It's not a good thing. So that's going to get me close to, this is going to get me the rest of the way, I think. And basically I just want that to go down the centre line of the bit of rod. The only trouble with doing it that way is you can be down here at an angle, or, you know, past that way, whereas this has got like a 90 degree to it, so I can stick 90 degrees on the end of my vise, and I will put a square up to it before I call this half done. And you know, we can just make sure we're cock on, but this has got to be symmetrical, because I don't want the finished buck to go onto the bike and then shape that piece of metal to it and it's like off, or, you know, something like that. It's got to be symmetrical, because you will notice if it isn't. So that's what I'm doing. I need to adjust that bend a little bit. It needs a little bit more in here. But what I'm finding is that as I'm heating stuff up, say I'm trying to put a bend in up here, so I'm heating that bit up and getting it cherry red and then giving it a tweak. Where it's red, it yields first. However, I'm putting an awful lot of stress on this point here. So that bit there wants to bend along with everything else in between, if that makes sense. So you're putting a little bend up here, but you're adjusting another bend down here. So there's going to be a little bit of toing and froing to get it right. But it's quite good fun. I'm quite enjoying this. What was I doing? Right, so we're going from about there. Right, excuse all the wibbly wobbly, but we are going handheld. I've got half of it done, look. Let me see if I can't put him on. Come on, go. I can't hold it properly, but you get the gist. It keeps wobbling. My wire form though basically goes through the centre line of that, which is peachy. It's really hard to show you, but if you look that way as well, it looks all nice and straight just because I've had it on that roller. That's the whole point of doing it that way. But we might be having a slight change of plan with the next bit. Where are you? Can you see? I can't do handheld. I haven't got the coordination. So we've had a slight change of plan, just because, well, what I was going to do was mark off my centre point on my template from the face of the jobby here. But I think what I'm going to, that is still really hot, isn't it? Oopsie. So yeah, what I was going to do was mark off my centre point, flip it round and start bending the other side. I don't think that's necessarily a great idea. So what I'm going to do is mark off where it starts in the vise, so I know that's my end point, and I'll mark off the centre line up here, and I'm going to chop the bugger off. That's what I'm going to do. And then this bit can go back in the vise. I can leave all this set up exactly as it is, although it's going to be interesting getting that in a bit closer because the compressor's in the way. But that'll be alright. And I can put it between my marks, have him on here, and I can keep bending. And I've just got to do exactly the same thing again. Then I can chop him off, stick him on my bit of flat jobby, whatever I've got over there, set the distance between the ends, and I'll just tack it in place. That'll be fine. I'll be able to grind it. That really is quite warm. I'll be able to grind it all smooth at the end, so you know it's not interrupted, but it's just going to make making it a little bit easier. So I'm going to wait for him to cool down. I'm going to have a brew, and then we carry on and do the next bit. Right, I'll be back. Right then, it's only had a very quick dress down just to get rid of the bulge of the weld on top, but I've got a couple of marks down the side here that this needs to go in between. So he is going to go on like that. The inside edge needs to go half tube, so about like that, and that is what it's going to look like. So if I peek down and do where it's symmetrical to the back of the frame anyway, and if you kind of look at an angle, so you just catch the frame tube and you just catch the outer edge, it is going to be close to this back corner of the battery tray, like 5mm close, but with a buck I should be able to wheel the sides and get them to land spot on. So he needs to be welded on like that. He needs to be tacked on there, and then ideally I would have something that runs from the top to the back, just a straight piece of something. The top is curved, so that bit is never going to touch. But I think that is how he needs to be. Something like that. What bar have I got? Have I got any? See, I'll bet this bit ain't going to be bloody long enough, is it? So if he's like that, he's going to sit about like, yay, or you're too short. Awesome! What have I got? I need a little bit of bar. Right, so that's all on and pretty solid. Don't need that anymore. It is only very lightly tacked on, just the smallest tacks, because I'm going to need to break them off and dress them down and everything else. There's no point in going gung over the welder. I don't care if that one is in the middle. All it's doing is setting a space between that hoop, and that's fine. So this is all on my markers. It's all nice and parallel, and I've had a straight edge going from this front section to the back, and we just clear this corner. I mean, like just maybe 3mm, something like that. Across the front there's about 5mm, closest point anywhere on the battery. So I know it all clears, and it's going to be this front edge that the hump comes up to. It looks quite tall actually, but this is going to come along and then droop down. So if you put a piece of TIG wire along here, it kind of blends down into the tank. At the minute it looks really tall because I haven't got a seat on it. The seat is probably going to come up to about yay. So, you know, it sort of throws your eye. It's quite weird though. As far as bending this up goes, I'll get a picture and show you, but I did when I was bending the second one, I was using the first one that I did as a template. I didn't need to use the paper thing anymore because it didn't matter about coming square off the vise. So literally you can just stick the first one on and you can get it absolutely cock on. And with some of those clamps, just clamping it at either end, it follows the line lovely. From the top view down, you'd swear there's only one piece. But it's about as symmetrical as it's ever going to be, and that's a buck. So what's the idea of a buck then? Well, so a buck is just something to help you get the shape right, basically. End of the day, that's all it is. So here's my seat hump. The side bits is too long. I'm going to be chopping this down, probably there and there, I would think, just because that way these bits aren't going to be clattering on the lower anvil support thingy on the English wheel. But anyway, he's going to go on something like that, ish. You get the gist. And then using some of these, I can clamp it in place to my buck directly, and I can see quite where I am. We have got a little bit of work to do. It touches here, it doesn't touch anywhere around there, so all that needs to be necked in a bit more, which means this bit needs to be grown. And at the front, hang on, let's get him set right. And at the front, we're still a ways off here, so I've got a gap there and there. We're touching at the top and the sides, if I clamp it properly. So we're obviously touching where the clamps are, we're touching at the top, we're not touching here. So this bit needs to be grown up a little bit more to get that to fit it properly. The other reason for doing it out of steel rod, rather than just a piece of wood, is you can see through the bugger. You can see where your gaps are, whereas if this is just one piece of wood, you know, one, how are you going to clamp it? Well, that would be interesting. But you can actually, you know, see all the way down the sides, and is it fitting up nicely and all that sort of stuff. So that's going to be important when we come to do the side bits. Clamping it on the back could be a bit of an issue, but again, I can see what I'm dealing with, where my gaps are, and therefore where I need to wheel it. Front and back is both symmetrical, so it's literally just a case of wheeling it until it bottoms out and I can't get anything around this piece of steel, and I can't get anything between whatever it is I'm working on and the frame tube. Once I've got that sorted, then I know it's going to fit right. So that's why I've done that. It is going to work. I'm blatantly nicking this idea and this way of doing it off Pro Shaper. And he does run a very good channel all about shaping metal and everything else. And he's doing it as a teaching channel. So that's all right for me to nick it, isn't it? It's just going to work, isn't it? It's just going to work. Pro Shaper, he's got loads of really good tips and tricks and stuff like that. And you know, I can see me watching quite a lot of him. Who'd have ever thought Ghetto blacksmithing would have been a thing, eh? So anyway, plan is, this is obviously too big to keep on working and get it to come down the sides. And pretty much it's going to get chopped off about there. Bigger than I need it. And it's this piece that I need to get shaped and grow, and this bit, the hump needs to go up a bit more so it necks in at the bottom. But with a smaller piece, I can get it through the English wheel and I could wheel it and I could get it to fit front and back. I'm sure I can. I've got the sense of where the metal goes and how it changes shape now, just because I've been goofing about quite a lot. But I think we is in. And then the side pieces, they'll have to be done separately. And I'll get to that when I get to that. I could still see me having to do a flange on the bottom bit, but I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. So the plans for this week is, I still haven't got the can for the exhaust, and I really want everything I need for the exhaust before I start on it. I could use the wish can just to mock it up and see where it's going to sit and blah, 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 blah. But it always looks a little bit different when you put the proper jobby on. You think, oh, I don't know, could have done with a little bit more of a bend there or something like that. So I'm not going to start the exhaust until I've got everything I need for it. I know what I'm doing. It should be fairly straightforward and easy as well. So we're going to crack on with that this week. this COVID thing literally has just knocked the absolute stuffing out of me. So although it doesn't look like I've done much today, I have actually done quite a bit. It's now what, 5 to 4. It took quite a while to get those 2 bits bent exactly the same. Because it is literally just, you have to sneak up on it. You know, a bit of heat here and a bit of heat there, and give it a tweak, and then check it, and then a little bit more, and then adjust it, and so on and so forth. But by the time I finish, you can put one on top of the other, clamp them, and they're just cock on. So I'm happy it's all symmetrical and whatnot. That frame isn't going anywhere until I'm finished with it, and then it's just a case of breaking the tacks off. You know, you can rock the whole bike with it at the minute, but it is only held on with a few tacks. But that's good enough to be getting that set up on. So it's hump first, then the exhaust, then everything is just getting put onto it, basically. But you'll see that when we get to it. I'm not telling you now. You'll see it, it's all be fine. But anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it for this one. Do I feel epic with my blacksmithing? No, not really. I just heated up some metal and bent it. You know, it's a good way of doing it. I would have preferred to have done it with a set of rollers. I did make like a hydraulic jack roller jobby for putting sort of smooth bends into steel rod and whatnot, so you get like a nice big curve and whatnot. There is a video in the playlist somewhere for it. But I binned it off just because I never used it, basically. That ideally would have been how I put those curves into those bits of bar, and I probably could have done it just as one thing as well at that point, but I haven't got that anymore. I haven't got a set of rollers. I do have a blowtorch and an attitude and a vice, so that's why I did it that way. But anyway, that's where I'm leaving it for this one. Thank you ever so much for watching. I do hope you're well and staying safe. We'll see you on the next one. Laters.